Ryan's going to talk to you about innovation that they have in action and how they'd like to grow it. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for allowing me to end this cohort. I'm going to talk, I have a big fancy academic title because I've learned something in this process about, you'll see how I kind of change my big fancy academic stuff to the business side.
Because of the size of Ryan's presentation, due to its existence in the Metaverse, I had to open it as a separate file because my computer can't handle it.
This is the smallest size talk I've ever given. It's only 1.5 gigs, but most of mine run about 8 gigs, so I had to really condense this down. If there's videos don't play, I'm just going to keep going. So, and I'll kind of just go ahead and get started. So my name is Dr. Ryan Moore. I'm a pediatric cardiologist and director of digital health innovation at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And I'm not wearing scrubs for a gimmick. Unfortunately, I am on call tonight. So with that, I'm always prepared for anything that could happen. And I'm going to share a case with you that's very common, essentially worldwide, where a sick heart will present in the night. And in less than 12 hours, this heart can get sicker, the heart function can worsen, and clots can even form in the heart. In this case, a surgeon would then be notified to be able to come up with what is maybe a life-saving procedure. But the options are limited, and really the surgeon's going to feel that the decision is really on them to be able to make that decision. What will that decision be, and what will the patient's outcome be? Well, the outcome will be, once we get our presentation up, is essentially in this day and age, the surgeon does have the ability to call their mentor. So we have cell phones that advance to that point. And in our case, the surgical mentor may be operating and probably is already operating in another OR, and they just so happen to be in a different country. This leads into an additional problem. The surgeon recommends that for this case, that the patient needs a total artificial heart, which is essentially removing the whole heart out of the child's chest and then replacing it with an adult-sized device. The surgeon will also just tell you that, or tell the other surgeon that, I'm concerned that this device might not even fit this patient because it's an adult-sized device. And so there's some other things that you need to really factor in here. An additional problem might exist that the center may have never even done this procedure before. And the surgeon, who's probably a junior surgeon, may have never even operated by themselves on this type of operation before. And then we've already mentioned that the fact that we don't know if the device will even fit the patient. There are options that still exist. The surgeon can make a decision to refer the patient or transfer the patient to the expert surgeon, who again happens to be in a different country. The surgeon can take the risk and essentially take it on themselves for what they will probably be the first time that they ever place this, and probably a very memorable one at that. Or you could wait and see if the patient improves, which we've already laid out a very dire circumstance here. And so that's what a total artificial heart looks like. And so again, we're replacing the whole heart with this device. And the last one would be to see if a patient would wait and see if the patient improves. But we've already laid out very dire circumstances. The chances of a good outcome are very unlikely in this case. And so I've just highlighted 2 current problems that still exist in healthcare in 2023. One is that complex cases don't really, we don't have the expertise at every hospital to be able to do every type of operation or every type of therapy. And so that is a current issue even in this day and age. Additionally, new technologies are all over the place, but you don't necessarily have access to all of those new technologies within your healthcare system. So our grand vision is to create an online community where surgeons can plan and present cases to each other and collaborate in an effort to be able to improve outcomes across multiple centers worldwide. So for this case, it's a good example where our center has pioneered this type of technology where we can actually plan cases with other centers. It's specifically the total artificial heart in young patients. We've also developed an immersive environment, so this is a VR-based environment for surgeons to be able to plan complex operations either individually or in a multi-user format. We can have our expert surgeon who might be in Cincinnati planning a surgery with a surgeon in Toronto, or vice versa. We also have an AI-driven patient outcome tracker. So you're doing a new technique and a new technology, but you want to know if that's going to improve your outcomes in real time. And so we have that built in as part of this platform. And additionally, we have this ability to bank all these cases so that you would have essentially a multi-user trainee portal so that you would then have trainees be able to go in there and then be able to relive the cases. And we've demonstrated this. This is our VR lab at Cincinnati Children's, and our trainees are in there working on planning cases with our collaborators in Sheba Medical Center in Tel Aviv, Israel. And that's them there, right there on Teams. What you just experienced is the Metaverse, but we like to actually call it the Mediverse. Thank you for laughing for that. This is real life. So we actually did this with Toronto Sick Kids, which is a world-renowned hospital, where we helped them to implant the first artificial heart in a patient. And our Metaverse saved this patient's life. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't overhyped. There were no tech giant CEOs involved telling you how great the technology is. We just did what we do every day. We take care of patients, but in a modernized digital way. And we have multiple use cases through Toronto Sick Kids, Sheba Medical Center in Israel, and Johns Hopkins in Tampa, Florida. And while we have a high demand for centers that want to grow this locally and globally. And those centers have partners that want them to be able to grow globally and locally as well. So the Metaverse business model, I will say, I didn't say this at the beginning, but I'm a failed artist turned cardiologist, so I have no idea about business stuff. This is why I did this course. But through this process, I kind of learned that this is something that could exist either through an individual or hospital level membership. It would allow essentially healthcare systems to have access to these digital tools through membership. For example, our virtual surgical simulation suite or our AI-driven outcome platform, and really any other ones that Clearview 3D is a great example that was demonstrated here today, having the ability to plug in these different applications and have this in this collaborative network. And essentially what we're creating is a digital doctor's lounge or digital surgeon's lounge where they have the ability to collaborate, plan cases, but then also to provide more mentorship opportunities around the world and also sharing outcomes and experiences. Again, never knew anything about the market, so this was something that I was tasked with in doing this. And I learned that there's probably two markets to look at for Mediverse. And that would be telehealth, which saw a huge boom after the COVID-19 pandemic, and is currently sitting at $83 billion, with an expected growth of 24% over the next 7 years. And then the Metaverse, which has an astronomical $430 billion projected by 2027. And obviously that includes gaming and other consumer products and industries, but I don't know how much they've even factored in healthcare into this number. But the problem still exists that you have to bridge the digital divide in healthcare because adoption of technologies in healthcare is challenging. It's a very risk-averse and busy system. And so use cases that are driven by investigators like myself and others, or really proving the value and the ability to implement new technologies are very, very important for adoption. And the benefits of a metaverse are really to promote a pro-social behavior in healthcare. This is something that we've seen through healthcare with physician burnout, nursing burnout. We really need that additional connection to the world to be able to show that we can collaborate with others, improve patient care for all. And it's something that we really need to do from that perspective. In addition, we want to be able to learn new techniques and advanced training, and collaborative networks have been really the way that we've done that in healthcare, and Cincinnati Children's has really led the way in that, versus the traditional of going to travel somewhere to learn a technique or go to an annual conference. And finally, and most importantly, we need to get to the point now where we can enableize personal care models, which has been promised forever and ever and ever, but has never been successful. But now we're in this value-based care system where we really need to, on the individual level, reduce complications and reinterventions in patients and really improve their outcomes. What I've learned from this process, again, is that there's the needs of a Metaverse NewCo would be really to define what this business model looks like for Metaverse. I don't think that's even been formally defined even in the Metaverse side. Is this software as a service? Is this a subscribed learning network? We have very high-level industry partnerships with Unity, Microsoft, and NVIDIA specifically for this case. But the healthcare academic community is a really difficult thing to be able to leverage all of their potential resources and finances to do it. So this is where a NewCo for us would be very key. And then we have connections to different healthcare systems. So for this one, an example, we have over 70 hospital platforms that exist in the collaborative network. How do we actually get into there from a business mindset and be able to get them to get user feedback and then also be able to take that feedback so that we can implement it and we can leverage these new strategies? And then again, as I've learned here, the importance would be for us is to have an entrepreneur in residence that can actually help us with this launching of a NewCo. So with that, I thank you and I appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks.
And thank you for persevering through the technical
No
difficulty
problem.
toward the beginning. So does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Yes.
Are you aware of any analogs or even predicates to what you're trying to do here that exist in the market?
Yeah. Can you define that a little bit?
Well, maybe just an easier way. Is it competition? Anyone else developing similar?
Oh, yeah. So I think competition is a good, so yes and no. I think on the virtual planning market, there's probably been, so we got an NIH grant back in 2018 that was through the Accelerate Innovations through NIH to be actually to develop something that would end up being a startup. When we looked at it back in 2018, we were like, there's no way you're going to adopt a VR across the board because it doesn't even exist right now. 2023, it's still the same issue, and all these other startups have come up. So we were at that place even 5-6 years ago where we were looking at this, is this something that we want to be able to do? And I would say it's still an issue because you have not demonstrated the value and the ability to implement this in the healthcare system. And that's why, while there is competition out there, there's other software solutions out there, the problem that exists is that they're not going to get adopted because they don't have providers being able to run this. The other issue is the cost. And so there's a platform that I just got contacted about that's very similar, I think, in the concept to our VR planning platform. And they're asking for $70,000 a year to be able to do this. Well, hospital systems, for a non-proven entity, are not going to pay $70,000 licenses for this type of stuff. It's just never going to happen. And so I think what we're trying to do is, if we build a collaborative network around it, say it's something like a $10,000 a year license that a hospital system builds into, and then we have plugins for these different applications. NVIDIA is doing something similar like the Omniverse, and you have all these access applications built into this platform. Then maybe they would have some ability to lower their costs by spreading across multiple things. I don't really care if they use ours or theirs or whatever they use. I think the one thing that will still become a problem is how do you get at that collaborative network component around it, and that is what does not exist right now. Yes?
The example you gave at the beginning was a problem of not being able to find an expert who can walk you through something.
Yep.
Are there solutions out there that serve that need today without the Metaverse or VR solution on top of it?
Yeah, I mean, there are. I would say it's pretty split off into, why you're getting a very specific market here from my perspective in pediatric congenital heart surgery, which is what we call the Formula One of all of healthcare, is because if we develop it for us, then you can basically take that information and technology and spread it across the board. It's the same kind of NASA model, that type of stuff. And so we're a very, very specialized market that has very, very complex patients. And so what we're building while, on the VR side, we do feel that can be beneficial across the board to multiple different networks. But, that expert connection piece, it exists in some forms. It exists in collaborative networks. It exists on things like, I think one of the things why we're working with Microsoft is Teams. Teams became universal. Teams and Zoom became universal in healthcare in 2020. We couldn't come in. We did come in. We could not meet in person for important meetings to talk about patient care, talk about research, that type of stuff. So we had to resort to the virtual meetings. And I think that we've essentially adopted that model throughout the course of it. And that's actually part of what our idea is that we are not going to try to go and sell a surgeon who might be in their 50s and 60s like, hey, put on this VR headset and then you can do all this cool stuff and whatever else, because they don't need it. So they don't care about it, they don't need it. The younger ones might, but they're not doing the complex operations. And so if you build something around something that's already been adopted in healthcare, like Teams, for example, then you would have that ability for them to have that kind of collaboration. I just got emailed this morning to be able to help to plan a surgery for a group in Japan. And like, they don't have our system yet, but we're gonna do everything through Teams, through our platform, but it's gonna be all based off of Teams. So what we're trying to do is build that like wrapper around this and to build a collaborative network in that sense. Yes?
I just wanted to go off of what he said. Being a patient, and sometimes surgeries are emergent. Like for myself, I had a tennis ball size tumor, and so they had to do surgery the next day. And even though my husband is a physician, he wanted to make sure I was in the best hands. But we didn't have time to do our research, and nor could I go anywhere. And so just having, like, if this was everywhere, and let's say the best surgeon was in, Canada, knowing that they could reach out to, have you seen this in this part of the brain, what should I expect? Then I would know I'm in really good hands. And so I just totally support this. It helps that it's my husband too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's my wife, Michelle. She is definitely part of the team, as is.
Nice.
I have a lot of other team members here, but she was not planted here for that. It's a very, so her question was, in a way, you kind of, brought up our personal experience. So Michelle, a couple years ago now, she's doing great now, but had a tennis ball sized tumor in her head, which you can look at her head, it's kind of small. So tennis ball is a big sized tumor. She had leukemia when she was a kid, did really well with that, but all that radiation that she had been exposed to caused tumors to grow. And so, we're very thankful that happened, but I will tell you, the first thing I did when we found out was, one, probably say some expletives, but two was I called someone right away. I had a friend who was a neurosurgeon, and I called and said, what do we do? Who do we contact? Are we in the best place? Are we in the best center? Like, what do we do with this? And then how do we know that these people know what they're doing? And that legitimately happens for all of us all the time. But the problem is that there is no structured network around that. And that is a definite gap in healthcare right now. And it's something that I think that we can at least start to move towards that with this type of thing. But it is, a real problem, and it's something that, we need to solve. So, thanks for that excellent question, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Moore.
Thank you.
You can keep that over there, and I'll take your clicker. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, so much for